Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lunar Alchemy. My name is John. With here, as always, is Bella. So nice of you to join us today on a special edition of Lunar Alchemy because this week kicks off the holiday season in the United States, at least, since we're having the Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday. We're meeting for Lunar Alchemy today to discuss the Shadow of Force and Gene Key 34. We are just coming off of an extraordinarily powerful lunar eclipse that happened last Thursday night. It was quite a momentous occasion, as there hasn't been a lunar eclipse of that duration for many, many, many years. So I'm very excited to dive into the relationships going on in the cosmos and really look at this primary raw energy that drives human evolution. There's so many different ways that we can look at this particular gene key, but I'm very excited, Bella, as well, just to have some of your perspective, because this particular gene key has a prominent position in my chart. It's my purpose sphere. And I know that it's a very common gene key in people's hologenetic profiles as well as in their charts overall. But one of the things that stands out about this particular energy is that it is by nature unconscious, meaning it functions without awareness, whether we're at the lowest frequencies of the shadow, the expanded higher frequencies of the gift, which is the gift of strength, or we're in the transcendent frequencies of majesty. At no level does it become aware of itself. So, Bella, how do we approach this, being that we're all a bunch of human beings in physical bodies with well-developed egos who just want to understand and control everything with our minds? What do we do here?
And I guess that there is an awareness when we start to look at the gene keys. We start to gain awareness, and we start to observe ourselves, even in that kind of movement that happens without our awareness. So I do believe that we learn to recognize those energies in ourselves.
Yeah, recognition feels like it's like an important quality in terms of the dawning of awareness. And I can recognize when this particular energy is working through my system. I mean, the Shadow of Force is it holds such a powerful presence in my own experience of trying to evolve. We've talked about my background in music, and I can't think of a better example than trying to become a professional musician for this particular gene key. So I recognize when it's happening inside me, and that makes me wonder if perhaps someday in humanity's future, the awareness around the functioning of this energy may transform in some way. Maybe not to become self-aware of itself, but to have a deeper awareness of what's actually happening inside us.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I definitely feel like I've seen it at play. I have my Uranus on both sides as one of my few fifth lines. The fifth line, I know it's powerful, and I can see this thinking that the shadow frequency of force together with a 38, which is the shadow frequency of force, we could say too, but it's they're working together, the stubbornness and the force. And I can see my life, like when I look at my life, but maybe in the moment I'm not aware. And I think for my parents, sometimes they're like, why is she doing like this, like knocking her head in the wall? And I think that's when I look back, I can see that. And more Richard is speaking about the shift from that outer, more masculine, muscular power that we're using kind of with elbows going in the world, and then finding the inner strength, which is more flexible, more tensile, that has to do with the fascia, and it's a movement on the inside of flexibility. And the 34 is also the gene key that codes for the brand, which is in the star pearl, or in the pearl sequence, when the life's work becomes your brand, like how you are sharing your genius in the world. Then we are speaking about the 34 that is coding the brand, and it has to do with embodied principle of spine. The spine, if it can't move, if it's like all stacked, then we are using 34 in its highest frequency.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that everybody has access to this particular gene key. I mean, really all gene keys, but this one, regardless of whether or not it's in your chart, it's going to show up in your experience in some form or another. And because of that prevalence of this particular gene key, it has a very, very impactful role in our experience of being embodied. So there's so many different ways that we could look at this particular gene key and the spectrum of frequencies that accompany it. There's the channel from the 20 to the 34, which is what I have making up my radiance and purpose spheres. There's the ring of destiny with gene key 43. So Bella, I would love to just see kind of what you're thinking about, what's going on in terms of this solar transit through gate 34 and how this energy is impacting us and contributing to our evolutionary process where we are right now.
Well, this is interesting. This is the chart that was an hour ago. And then there's another chart that is actually a little bit different that I'm going to share, that is right now. So let's see. That one has one center open, I think. Here we go. Yeah, so here we are, even a little bit closer to where we are now. Yeah, I know that when we looked at the lunar eclipse in last week, we had 7 centers, I believe, that were defined. So there was a lot of energy. You were speaking about the 2034, which is this pure manifesting generator energy. And we were speaking, we have JLo today inside our container. And she has the 20 and the 34 in her nodes, and they are flipped because she went through the exact nodal return, and now she has the 34 here and the 20 here, so it's flipped. And like you're saying, I think that the energies that are going on right now are powerful, and we can see that the sun is actually together with the nodes, and that is having us look at those themes of the nodes. And the sun comes from the nodes are going backwards, we could say. They're going clockwise, and all the other planets are going counterclockwise. So here we have had the nodes coming back towards the sun, and the sun is coming. Now they're meeting, and we have the 24 and the 20, the 20 and the 34. I think the theme, this is the theme that is both the programming partners, they are opposite in the wheel, and they are connecting the sacral to the throat. And when we have the south node here in Sagittarius and the north node in Gemini, well, it is about truth and about facts. This is our mental faculties. The 20 is awareness in the now, what's really going on. And Gemini and ruled by Mercury, it's going to go around the wheel and like speak to all the elements, to all the signs, to everybody, to find out the truth. And it's logical. It wants the facts. It wants to communicate and analyze and know the truth. And there is something with Sagittarius that has more to do with belief, with expansion, with optimism. Oh no, we might not need all the details or the facts. We can just like hope that everything, we're just going to know that everything is going to go well. Well, the sun is here now, but there is still, I believe that we are pulled right now in the world between these two. Yeah, it's really, really good to believe in expansion, to believe that we can have this mutable fire inside of us that can take us places. But somehow we don't want to forget that right now, when we look at this from a gene key human design perspective, we have the earth, which we usually don't look at in astrology. We have the earth and we have the north node here in the 20. So we need to be really in the now in our bodies. The whole integration circuitry is very much in the now, in the body, in the intuition, in the naturalness of who we are. That's where we can find the truth. That's where we can have the north star, the north node. So I believe that that's important. And not like, again, not to say that I don't be optimistic, but I actually want us to tune in a little bit even more to the 20 right now, so that we don't get carried away by the Sagittarius energy. And there is something in the 34 when it is a low frequency where it can be forceful and it can kind of bully others. Oh, you don't have the same optimism like I have. Well, you are like a pessimist. That's not the way. It can kind of be that way because it's so absorbed in its own belief, in its own view, in its own movement, that it doesn't always consider the other. I feel that's what I feel is alive when we look at the chart. There are many other things, but that's especially for where we are in the wheel. And speaking about 34, this seems important.
Yeah, it seems, what you're talking about is so interesting that the nodes are lining up, because what is it that we are even doing when we engage with some form of trying to evolve on our own pathway? We're directly engaging our minds with our experience of these nodes. So when we become aware in some way, ooh, there's north node energy over here, most people are going to light up and go like, I want to go towards that. And the response to that awareness is generally to, okay, let me control things so I can experience the outcome of the north node, which is where we are with the earth right now. So the alignment that's happening right now, it really speaks to how this energy functions through us and how our response changes the capacity of that frequency to manifest in our system. If we encounter that north node energy, or we want to move in the direction of it, or we see the south node energy somewhere in our experience and we're like, I want to move in the opposite direction from that. Our ability to either be with what is happening or to engage our minds to control the outcome is really, from what I can tell, determines how some of the frequency of this shadow or gift is going to manifest in our experience. If we do our best to try and exert our inner will, our force onto the reality to get wherever it is that we want to go, then we're going to lose any awareness of our impact on the environment, on the people in our lives, the relationships that we have, and we're going to manifest those shadow frequencies of the 34. I personally, having Taurus as my moon, I tended towards the bullish nature of the reactive 34 growing up, and probably still do to some degree. Obviously, the repressive side of that, while maybe a little less ugly in terms of how it shows up in relationships, it's equally as kind of impactful towards our overall experience and the experience of interaction that we're having with the world and with the people around us. That self-effacing quality of repressive shadow energy here is the one that prevents us from recognizing the possibility of our own impact on the world, the planet, our relationships. And when we don't recognize that, the forces of destruction, I guess is a way to put it, are kind of put into motion. And the line that really stood out to me about this particular gene key, I want to grab it because it's just the way that Richard Rudd puts it. So at a low frequency through the 34th gene key, all human beings are destructive to the collective. So when we look at that, why are human beings destructive to the collective? It's because of that degree of self-absorption, the lack of awareness of harmony that manifests through this separation from the collective that we experience as individual identities, with this powerful evolutionary raw energy moving through each one of us as aspects of the collective. When we're unable to harness that energy in service to the whole, it's going to generate damage. It's going to cause destruction to happen. So, I mean, really, really an incredible energy that we're looking at here. And just out of curiosity, you know, if you're watching on Facebook, I know most of us here in the membership have this gene key in a prominent place. You know, just mention on in the comments if you have 34 in your profile. I'd be curious to see where that shows up and just how common it is amongst those of us who are attuned to lunar alchemy and this process of using the gene keys in this particular way. So, Bella, I'm curious what excites you about the possibilities of this particular gene key, or this discussion, where we're at in this transit and what we can discover through this process.
You know, I think that through the body, it's never too late. That's what I feel excited about in this gene key. And again, we spoke about it with J-Lo in the call just before. And I was saying so much of me when I was 19, 18, I wanted to dance and like I wanted to do it. That was what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew I had to go back to college, but that's what I wanted to do. And I think our body knows how it wants to move, and it's never too late. The way that I discover more about the physical form, about how I move and how, like, it's every day. And I don't think that everybody has that even that interest so strongly. I think it might be connected to this 34. In my case, I have the 3457 channel twice. I have the conscious and unconscious. So for me, the way that I move in the moment, the way that I realize in the power that is in this channel, it's just, for me, this is how I want to live life. And I think, is it here that we have the victim pattern is being victim of your physicality. And I think in the shadow, you're like, why am I in this form that's going to fall apart? And when I'm 80, I'm not going to be able to lift the weights that I could do when I was 35, or, so I think it's a continuous discover of the physical form. This is part of the integration circuitry. The integration circuitry is about evolution. It allows us to be aware in the now, in intuition in the now, so that we can adapt to changing circumstances. We're so in the now, in our own body, in our naturalness. So whatever happens, we already know and we adapt. And then of course we can survive. So I'm excited about that. And I think that there are new things. I mean, I was working in the gym when I was 16, and now I started to do personal training that I never thought I would do, because I'm like, I can do that with people. But I'm working with somebody who just is a wizard with a body. He's like, well, this is here. I feel a knot here in the fascia, and that means this and this and this. And I'm like, I've been saying that, but I didn't understand. And he connects the dots in a way. I have the 46 as well, which is also the seriousness. It's a love of being here in physical form, but it's also the seriousness of the body falling apart, of all these things where it feels like you'd rather be in spirit than embodied. So for me, I think my enlightenment has to do with embodiment. When I can completely be in the body and accept that I'm here and be trusting this journey in this form 100,000%. And it's been extra hard this year. John, you lost your mom. In my family, I lost my aunt. I have my father who's not doing well. My mom is not doing well. Like, a lot of people has been leaving this physical body in ways that were like really sudden. And it would have been for my shadow. There were so many ways of saying, oh my God, like now at this age, people are starting to die in our age, and the very next generation of our parents are starting to leave. It would be the perfect opportunity to say, this is not safe. I have to be serious. But more than ever, the embodiment and the essence of what it is to be human. And the second gene key is my life's work. So I think for me, it's an exciting journey. And I was saying to somebody yesterday, I was leaving a voice note, and I said, the people that I've really felt like I need to have in my life there are a few people that I knew understood the physical form better than I did. They were either, they had worked with so many people, with thousands of people for many years. And one was a Navy SEAL. Another person is has worked with martial arts. And now they're working with people that have Parkinson's and all these things. And they are overriding those diseases of the neurological system of the body. And I've always been fascinated. And I seem to be meeting these people. Like I said, even now with somebody I'm working with that is a wizard. And I wasn't even expecting that. So I think that there is, even if this 34 is very individual, I feel like I'm attracting other people that have this majesty in how they understand the body and how they move through the world. And we all know that when we see a dancer, or we see a Black Panther, we see something that moves in form through beauty and strength. It's just hypnotizing for the human being. I think that's what, that's why we are still paying money to go watch like a ballet or something. It's there. The beauty of that is something that is moving us and hypnotizing us. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting to consider that archetype of the Black Panther, and of how it kind of shows what our relationship is between our awareness of ourselves and the bodies that we inhabit. If you watch the movement, if you've ever watched these documentaries about like wildlife, and they're talking about big cats, but particularly when you get into that jaguar family where they're, the panthers are climbing trees and they're sort of prowling around so quietly, and mountain lions are very similar to this. You think about how they're moving and you're like, how do they have so much awareness that like they can walk along these like thin ledges that are like wider than their paws, and they seem to do it effortlessly. I mean, the sort of social media craze for the pandemic was like setting up these like hallway obstacle courses for your cats and your dogs, where they would have dogs like trying to jump over toilet paper rolls, and cats are like walking through like dominoes, right? That barely has enough space for them to fit their paws, and the cats walk through it like it's nothing, like they're just like dur, 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 walk straight through it, don't touch a thing. The dog comes by and like knocks everything down. And when I think about this particular energy as an unconscious force, you can't achieve that degree of competency, tying it back to where we just were last week, by exerting your conscious mind on a particular task, because your conscious mind is too slow. It's too disconnected from the totality of the environment that you're inhabiting. So when we are transfixed by a ballet or by watching a transcendent talent on in the sports world, or anybody who's engaging in this incredible physical display of competency, it's because they've moved whatever task they're doing into the realm of unconscious competency, where it doesn't matter what's going on, they can perfectly execute whatever it is they're doing without thinking. And I feel like it's so interesting. I didn't expect this to really come up this way, but the channel of talent and some of those areas of our consciousness, I didn't think of the 34 as playing directly into that. But when you look at this, either the gift or the shadow functioning in a person, it's really, it's really present, and gives us a clue as to how we can engage in our embodied practices. Can we transform those things that we're doing consciously into a highly refined expression of unconscious awareness, for lack of better way to talk about it? Even though this energy is not self-aware, there is this sort of presence awareness that occurs when you're in that state. So you're bringing up this kind of awareness of reality that is going on in the world, where people are leaving their bodies. This pandemic has been going on now for almost 2 years. It's been 2 years since the last time we could kind of go out into the world without thinking about deviating from our normal behavior, our normal social behaviors. What what does this particular transit and this awareness of our bodies, what can we look at in terms of how we're handling whether or not we've gotten sick with this virus, or we've responded to it by getting all of the vaccines and the boosters available as fast as possible, and wearing our masks, separating ourselves from the people that we even live with. Some people have, really gone to an extreme degree of self-protection to isolate and protect themselves. And some people are like, let's have a wedding reception in the middle of the pandemic with 300 people as soon as possible. Like everybody's going to be fine. And then in some cases, everybody isn't fine. What's going on in the world that's teaching, like, what is it that we need to learn? Like, what is this environment teaching us about this connection and this energy that exists within us, and how we can relate with it?
Well, I would go back to say how things have been and what the truth of these gene keys in the integration circuitry are saying. So evolution is individual. So when we look at individual circuitry, there is a pulse that comes from our kundalini that is pulsing through us. And when we look at the integration channels, like we were saying, it is because they are so absorbed in themselves and so kind of deaf for outside influence that they are so in tune with the now, so that they can jump without even knowing it, the toilet paper, like you were saying, like the cat just does it. It's in that self-absorption, and it's individual. We know that mutation happens through that circuitry, through the individual circuitry, and it happens in friction with your environment, with your natural environment. And that is how species have evolved forever. And human evolution comes also from that pulse, and we can call it kundalini, and we can even look at through the chakras. When you're able to pulse that energy, not just in your lower chakras, but it comes up to your heart, it comes up to your higher chakras, to your awareness. Well, Richard speaks about that shift of living in a higher frequency, when that pulse is not just primal, but we are sublimating and circulating the energy. And that is how mutation and transformation is happening. We are in the quarter of mutation now. It started in the first gene key. It's an individual gate. Then we went through the 14 and the 43, and now we are in the 34. All these are individual gates, and they are starting that quarter of mutation, of transformation. Transformation is individual, the individual in natural friction with its environment, and it's supposed to happen us unaware of everything else. And then in a way we are going to strive and survive, or we aren't. But there is something when we start to play with that mutation, with that evolution, with the DNA, and when we are kind of like doing it from the outside and not from the pulse of the inside, that it is not what it has been before, and we could call it an experiment. And this is I have been very much contemplating this week, because I was going into the circuitry and I was looking at the root energy and the kundalini, and this thing that we say in the quarter of mutation, that transformation and mutation is individual. So I think this was not exactly your question, but I think it's extremely relevant right now where we're at, and to see how evolution has happened forever until we have started to interfere and kind of do it from the outside in instead of from the inside out, potentially. So I just want to that's just what I want to put on the table here.
That's really interesting to extrapolate what you're sharing and apply it to these direct situations. The friction of the environment is the presence of a virus that we can't see, taste, touch, smell, identify in the present moment. We can only do so in hindsight with tests and examining symptoms and of our health. The friction that people experience in relationship to the regulations and the measures that are being put in place by governments and communities, and the expectations of people within the community that you live in, that can generate friction. And when you look at the almost unavoidable compulsion to work from the outside in, to use our minds and our ability to exert our will, the use of force onto the environment to protect ourselves or to protect the people that we care about in the community, really see this like the possibility for the dawning of the awareness within the individual form, the physical body, to recognize what is in harmony with our own individual circuitry, where we are on our own evolutionary paths. What's the best thing for us to do? Is it to get a vaccine? Is it to go to the parties? Is it to avoid all those things and isolate? Is it to, talk about to avoid the vaccines like they're the next plague itself? Our awareness rising in our bodies is really something that's driving all of this. And it's interesting as we look at this movement into human evolution through 2027 and the next evolutionary step of humanity, how all of these things and so many more are driving us in this new direction. So I love this idea that you're sharing, Bella, about how friction is experienced as an individual and how that relates to the structures of our egoic identities that function as individuals, and how we are becoming more aware of the egoless collective energy that we are simply aspects of, and how that's kind of driving us in a new direction. Really, really profound.
And just the last thing, this circuitry, the 20, the 10, the 57, and the 34, it thrives on being able to feel itself deeply in the now. That's what it thrives on. So it is dangerous if it loses that ability. And a reason why it is self-absorbed and unaware is because we don't want it to lose that ability. We don't want this to get, we don't want it to get too much influence from the outside. We want it to be able to listen to itself. That is very important. So, and then then we all have to make choices. But there is a real possibility that we are forgetting the genius of how it works. And I would love us to remember that and to honor that, because this is what have made us evolve as a species since we were mammals, and to make us walk upright. because we had that inherent knowing in the moment, this awareness in the moment, this intuition in the moment of what's right for us, how to walk, like you said, with our paws without falling, you know, that's there. So we want to do everything so we can heighten that intelligence, the volume of the intelligence of the body that's there beyond the mind, before the mind. Yeah, I want to highlight that.
Beautiful. Yeah. So recognizing the divine intelligence of the human being that exists within this solar plexus area, rather than being fully wrapped up in the movements of the intellect and how it wants to sort of control the results and the movements of life itself. Really, really a powerful moment for awareness, and interesting to consider that this particular holiday of Thanksgiving every year falls right in this window, and how we can look at this holiday from so many different perspectives. The rising awareness of the impact of European settlers, invaders, or explorers, depending on the perspective, and the impact that that has had on the population of human beings that lived in this land before them. Native peoples and the awareness of indigenous culture around this time. Really, really powerful opportunity to become aware of these forces of evolution as they move through us. So for those of you watching on Facebook, I want to thank you for joining our discussion of the Shadow of Force, Gene Key 34 through the lens of lunar alchemy. An incredibly powerful and important aspect of lunar alchemy is the quantum energetic attunements that we engage with every week with our members that we're going to move on to at this time. And these attunements allow us to imbibe a frequency of energy that can assist, that can accelerate, that can generate a frequency of energy that is going to make our contemplations and our evolutionary movements a more powerful experience for us as we're moving in the direction of this profound mutation that is upon us, as described through the 22nd gene key, the 55th gene key, the evolution that's going to happen in 2027. If you're interested in checking us out or in engaging with this energetic process, click on the link in the comments and we'll be excited to see you in this space. So for all of you on Facebook, thanks for joining us. Have a beautiful and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. May your unawareness of your physical and divine presence in a body expand exponentially over this transit, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a future discussion.